Parts of London are shocking, and I find it offensive. I know I should care for these people. I don't care for them.
Conservatism, everybody. Conservative ideology in a nutshell. So last week we covered a story about the idea that the Tories want to further criminalise the homeless, which of course is absolutely awful, terrible policy, but it's probably likely to at least have some backing in the Commons. So we're going to watch a debate around this subject in specific, which is going to have some interesting moments. It involves actual friend of the show, Aaron Bastani, and ironic friend of the show, an ex-Sun editor, Kelvin MacKenzie, debating this on the Michelle Dewberry show on GB News, and I'm sure there'll be nothing untoward happening whatsoever. Let's watch.
Tell you what you do see a lot of on the high street, and that is rough sleepers. I've got to say the government are in trouble. When are they not, actually, quite frankly? But there's this whole notion about whether or not rough sleeping should actually be made more of a criminal offence, Aaron. The Tories, Suello, for example, I'm sure it was Suello, she was talking stuff about tents and whether or not tents would be allowed on the streets. And now there's kind of conversations within the criminal justice bill about whether or not it should be criminalised, rough sleeping. Do you think it should?
I think they've got this debate the completely wrong way around. It's upside down. Why are people homeless? Why are they rough sleeping? That should be the first question, not how do we criminalise them. Generally speaking, it's because of substance abuse issues. It may be, and this was on your tweet, I don't want to steal something you're about to say, you were saying the kinds of people that are rough sleeping you saw earlier on today.
I'll tell you about that in a second.
Yeah, people can fall on hard times perhaps because of the way that benefits have changed in the last 10 years. It's much more punitive now, so you might have to wait for 6 weeks, 8 weeks before you actually get that universal credit payment. People can't not have money for 2 months, so that creates a problem too. That's many, many people, not everyone, people who have been through the child protection system and been failed, frankly, by their parents as well. That'd be the first question for me. Look, we're always going to have some homelessness. I accept that. The point is, can we minimise it? I think we can absolutely reduce it through a mix of measures. And I think it speaks volumes that the Conservatives' approach is, how do we criminalise it? Look, if you're down on your luck, you have a substance abuse issue, you're literally sleeping in the cold every night, you're not going to be worried about a prison cell. If anything, that's an upgrade. But like I say, that's the Conservatives for the last 14 years, frankly.
Kelvin?
It's also very, very stupid, as I mentioned beforehand, this idea that, we can just put these people in prison cells when the prisons are literally full. There is nowhere to put them, to the point at which serious violent criminals are not being put in prison because there's no space. Again, Conservative austerity hasn't just completely fermented us this massive housing crisis, meaning people can't afford to live because there's no social housing because it's not been invested in. They want to criminalise the people who have been then the victim of their poor policy on housing, and then try and put them in prisons that have no space in them either. Of course, when he says there's a mix of measures that we can do to minimise homelessness, there is only one solution. There is a singular solution to homelessness, and that is to build houses and to put people in the houses. The housing first policy is the only policy that works, and that's why Finland is the only country in Europe that has a declining homeless population. That is how you solve these issues. You also say, well, Helena, the issue is, of course, if they have substance abuse, they'll just go back on the street. They can't be put in shelters, they'll just go back on the street. Shelters don't work either. Shelters are a absolute money sink. Every study shows this, that when you are using homelessness shelters as a way of getting people off of rough sleeping, that only creates a cyclical problem. They don't actually solve the base issues. If you have a substance abuse problem that makes you homeless, putting you in a shelter is not a way of being able to actually solve that issue. Once you create stable housing using a housing first policy, that creates the ideal conditions to solve the substance abuse problems in the first place, and therefore get people back into a stable place so that they can then not be homeless in future. So housing first policy is the only thing that works. Criminalising this stuff is just essentially naked cruelty from the Conservative government. Not only is it morally completely abhorrent, it also is completely unworkable and doesn't solve the issue either.
Well, parts of London are shocking, and I find it offensive. I know I should care for these people. I don't care for them.
Conservatism, everybody. Conservative ideology in a nutshell. I should care for these people, but I don't. If you ever needed any more clarity on the fact that conservatism as an ideology fundamentally is one of cruelty, is one that is about not caring about anybody else, there's your answer. Suella Braverman, she doesn't care about homeless people. She only cares about the potential for businesses to lose money if homeless people are around there, and then also offer a solution that doesn't even work either. And on top of that,
is a disgrace.
you have Kelvin MacKenzie just saying explicitly, I don't care about rough sleepers. I should care about them, but I don't. But at least to be fair, he admits it. Rather than people like Suella Braverman who'll try and pretend that they do, whilst also being effortlessly and unreasonably cruel to them for no reason whatsoever. At least he admits that he just doesn't care. And to be fair, like, there are plenty of people who also don't care, but they then seem to really care about the fact that they have to see these people when they walk around their town centres. Well, maybe if you actually cared about supporting policies that would get people off the street, like a housing first policy, then you wouldn't have to bother dealing with homeless people when you're walking around your streets, wouldn't you? It's weird how it solves two problems at the same time.
They're lying in shop windows. They're lying on the pavement. They cover themselves in cardboard. One of them in Charlotte Street, if you go into the ATM there's a guy on your case at 100 miles an hour who clearly, to your point, actually has got some drug-related issue. You feel threatened by it. These are dangerous people for ordinary people.
Some
right?
people, not all of them, though.
No, but it's a threatening environment, and I'm sure everybody has a bad luck story to tell.
Also worth pointing out as well, first of all, the reason why they're sleeping in shop fronts and on the pavement is because we have deliberately made anti-homeless architecture so that they can't sleep on benches and they can't sleep under bridges. We literally try and make it so they cannot sleep under these areas, and so they're forced out into the middle of the road and into shop fronts. That's a deliberate choice that we've made instead of engaging in a housing first policy to solve the issue. Would you agree makes the life of everybody else more dangerous? You understand that there are full-on social problems that get created by an increasing homeless population, and yet you will not support policy that solves the problem.
Do you not have any sympathy at all? Because
no,
you're a parent, aren't you?
Yeah.
And when you look at some of these people, because I have, for various reasons, my past doesn't matter, but I do have a huge sympathy, actually, for people that are homeless, and I spend a lot of time trying to talk to people. I volunteered in a homeless refuge before for a period of time.
Right.
I've directly employed someone. I saw a young man, a young kind of boy on the street that was homeless, and it broke my heart. And I had a business at that point in time, and I employed him. I took him and said to him, you don't need to be on the street, I will give you a job. And it was challenging because he had issues with alcohol, and it was quite challenging. But long story short, the end of that is a very happy ending. He sorted himself out, and his life looks very different today.
Oh, that's good.
And I do think.
Well, look, I'm grateful, and I'm sure your viewers will be grateful that there are caring and sharing out there. I don't happen to be in that area, I'm afraid.
I'm a sociopath, and I'm proud to admit that I am one. Well, again, at least he's happy to take the mask off, eh, chap? Again, this is just exactly what you need. If you're watching at home, if you watch my channel, and you maybe are not fully in agreement with my political viewpoints, that's fine. You're entitled to your own views. These are the kind of people who agree with you. People who openly say, I just don't care about other people. They're happy to be cruel to other people because they just don't give a shit about them. Maybe that's worth some level of introspection. That's the kind of people who are pushing policies like criminalising homelessness to you. People like this.
It's not. I don't wish them harm. I do not want them to be, damaging a great city or causing unease. Even if it's not violence, I don't like the atmosphere that they create. Now, what can be done about it, I don't know. I kind of buy the argument that actually saying to them, we're going to fine you, is probably absolutely ridiculous.
The tweet that Aaron mentions, today I went into a supermarket. It's one that I don't often go to, I must confess. So I've not been there for ages. Anyway, long story short, just on one layer of the car park, just one layer, there was these three separate, I don't know how to describe them. I called them almost like, they're not camps, but they're not just beds. They're like setups. There was three of them, and there was 5 different people. Anyway, I went and spoke to them. I went off to one of them. And this lady, I said to her, she said, have you got any money or whatever? I said, I ain't got money. Who's got cash these days? Anyway, I said, does she want any food? And she was so specific. I said to her, because she's definitely a woman that knows man, she wanted a southern fried chicken wrap from the hot section of the supermarket. Anyway, long story short, it was not available.
I mean, who doesn't want a southern fried chicken wrap from the hot section of the supermarket? That shit's fire.
So I offered her other food that she didn't then want, but she directed me to one of the other things, the tarpaulin over the stairs that you saw there. I went in there. Anyway, long story short, I spoke to the guy there. And he was using drugs, I must confess, and I saw that. And I had a long chat with him. And he was 35. He was a chef, actually. And they both told me they've got a dog. They loved their dog. And they couldn't get into a hostel because they were not willing to part with those dogs. But to your point about substance abuse, even if someone...
Again, this is, temporary accommodation does not work. It's not a policy that works. It makes a cyclical problem. Not only are they not suitable for some people, but they don't solve the underlying issues. The idea that you can somehow, without a stable place to live, just going from shelter to shelter, use that as a position to solve the substance abuse problem that's caused your homeless problem in the first place, it's just a money sink. It's a money sink in the same way that policing homeless communities is also a money sink. You're throwing money away. You're literally incinerating money, which could be solved very simply by just building houses and putting people in the houses.
Picked that guy up now and put him into a house today, right now, here's your flat. That's not going to solve a problem.
No.
Because he
Yes,
was,
it is.
you know,
Yes, it is. It literally is going to solve the issue. First of all, they can take the dogs into the flat. But also, again, if he's got a substance abuse issue, you need stable accommodation to be able to do that. You can't do that in the street. You can't do it in a shelter. You definitely can't do it in prison.
From what I could see, quite a heavy drug user. Yeah. And then, you've got another big problem on your hands then, because now you've got people kind of all coming into one centralised place to kind of use and share drugs. But what do you think people's attitudes to that should be? Because part of me, when I looked at the supermarket, those camp things had been there for quite some time. And I was trying to work out, was it a good thing or not?
Yeah.
Whether or not they'd not been moved on. Because part of me thought, well, it's nice that this organisation has let them stay somewhere. The other side of me then thought, but does that then encourage more people to go there? I wasn't actually sure where I was on it. Where are you on that?
It's a huge issue in the United States. So immediately following the subprime crisis, millions of people, I think 10 million people lost their homes after 2008. Many of them lived in the kinds of makeshift camps you're talking about. On the one hand, it's good that you might be able to find a sense of, and these were quite normal people. You can find community, you might be able to stay safe, stay warm, eat, that's all good. But like you say, it's not a long-term solution for anybody. My view is, look, everybody deserves a second chance. Doesn't matter who you are. All of us could fall on hard times. You might lose a loved one, your child might pass away, whatever. You could gravitate towards drink, drugs, depression, etc. And I think, look, you can't help everyone. Of course you can't. But look, we've seen since 2010 alone a massive increase in homelessness in London. It's visibly different. Something has changed. All I'm saying is it can't be that hard to go back to something like before 2010. We're not saying, create a car that can go 1,000 miles per hour. That was the state of affairs 14 years ago.
Well, what do
And again, it's just about building houses. Like, the reason why it's increased since 2010 is because of the housing crisis. And of course, the fact that people earn less money because of supply-side labour market policy of the Tory government. But it's just the homelessness problem is entirely related to the housing crisis and how prohibitive house prices and rental prices are for regular working people who fall on hard times. The reduction in council housing, the absolute dearth of social housing, these are all part of the problem that's gotten us to this position in the first place. We can literally build houses in Rwanda, yet we can't build social housing in our own country. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.